Hi, this is Erika of Grapefruit and Gardenia Designs and the Knit Kind podcast. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, we are an informal fiber podcast that welcomes everyone and looks to build a safe, kind space for people to come together over a shared love of fiber arts. And we talk a little bit about the world sometimes, but I have to be honest, I don't feel a whole lot like talking about it today. I might insert a few things as we go, but I wanted to catch up with you before the summer really kicks in. We are in a massive heat wave here in the United States and the Northeast and much of the country. And I can't believe it's almost July. I mean, I can and I can't, but here we are. So I am sitting here surrounded by wool with some ice dye, which is another fun thing that I like to do. And I thought before I take a little break with family and friends and have some time off in July, that I would catch up with you and then we'd know what to come check in on maybe midsummer. We'll see where we end up. So if you do like the podcast, I appreciate, as always, a like, a subscribe, a comment, anything to help us get out there and reach more people, to bring together people under the premise of kindness and knitting or other fiber arts. I mentioned ice dye. Why don't I start with that? Let's start with something a little bit different. This shirt I've had forever. Forever is probably about, gosh, I don't know if it's, I doubt it's quite 5 years. But it's pretty close if it's not, maybe 4. I learned ice dyeing through Heather Best of So Happy Jane, the independent dyer out in Idaho. I took her online course during the pandemic and learned how to ice dye, and I was hooked right away. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, it's a lot of spontaneity or happenstance. You don't get to control the dyes. You use ice, you can use snow, and I'll stand up a little bit so that you can see this. You get these really cool patterns. So unlike tie-dye, where you're dissolving the dye and you're then dipping parts of your fabric into it, ice dye, you pre-treat your fabrics and you kind of do some scrunching up of them so that you create negative spaces as well, and then you cover it with ice. You sprinkle the dye on using the protective gear that you need to, because it is a fiber reactive acid dye, and then you just let things happen for 24 hours and you see how the colors work. And sometimes the colors fracture into other component colors, and from something that's, to the naked eye, a gray, or if you were to dissolve it in water, a gray, you might get some gold and some blue and some purple. It's very, very cool. Not all the colors fracture, but the ones that do, it's pretty cool. So I might insert some photos. I've been not in this heat wave, but last week and the week before, I was making quite a bit of ice dye because I do sell that at the craft show at Martha's Vineyard, which this year is Saturday, August 2nd at the Tabernacle in Oak Bluffs. If anyone's local and wants a little day trip or is on Martha's Vineyard, it's something I've done since I was 5 years old with my grandmother, my mother. My son now participates in it. And for a few years, I was the volunteer who was managing the whole show. This year, someone else was able to take that on, which was nice. So I'm still going to participate in the craft show this year, but I'm not going to run it. And I thank the woman who took that piece over for this year. Okay, long-winded, but you get it. So ice dye, I did a whole bunch of shirts. I did a lot of bags that are like just the little tote. You can use them as project bags or market bags. And I did a couple of these small zipper ones. I'm going to show you because I had to keep one for myself. Almost every time I do this, there's ones that I'm like, oh, if that one doesn't sell, that one will be mine. And this time I had to keep this one. I'm not even putting out. This one's mine. What do you think? I just love the way that the colors came out on this one. And one of the things that I do with my ice dyeing is, much like with my spinning, I don't, not that I don't try to get perfect at it, that's the wrong way to say it, but I don't take all kinds of notes and I don't make it something that's more prescriptive. It is really just artistic expression. However it works out, it works out. And so I will sort of mentally make note of the colors that I put together, but when I have all of the trays out that I have doing it, in the end, I might not know exactly which pink or blue I put in something. And also because they're all one of a kind, you can't replicate it. So you can kind of have a theme and you can sort of know, and I think I know 2 of the 3 colors for sure, and I'm not 100% sure which blue I used, but I might try to make a t-shirt that looks like this too, because I just love how the colors came out. So anyway, that's my ice dye. Like I said, I'll maybe insert a few pictures of the process of me doing this, and maybe a few of the finished products too. I really worked on a lot of the women who come to the craft fair really like this look of like an abstract floral top. So I kind of concentrated on some color combinations that would do that this year in the sizes that historically people have been looking for, but it's only a couple hours long for the show and you never know who's going to come from year to year. So we'll see. Maybe someday I'll put them on my Etsy site after the craft fair, but I also love to use them as gifts, and my son and I sometimes do it together, and so we'll use it for like a teacher's gift or just different things. It's a lot of fun. The other thing I have sitting here that I think is worth mentioning is a skein of very inexpensive non-superwash wool. And the reason that I have it sitting here is because I was looking for different yarns that worked the best for me to demonstrate in a class of how to do different techniques. And what I quickly learned when I was using different scraps I had is that it wasn't helpful for me to use superwash yarns or slippery yarns, because I wanted to be able to demonstrate in a way where I could go slower. I could talk and pause and not have yarn slipping off of needles and not to say fiddly, but I didn't want it to go fast. I wanted it to be something that I could set down and pick up. And so I didn't want to use a lot of my precious farm yarns that I have sitting around for demonstration purposes. And I didn't really know that I had a lot of scrap yarn of it. And I looked through my stash and I found this wool and it was perfect for demonstrations. So I might just real quick show you a little piece from a demonstration. And then as I was using it, it was really nice to work with. And I thought one of the things I haven't spoken about recently on this podcast are less expensive wools that you might be able to substitute for some of the farm yarns that are very pricey. And I've talked all about the reasons that farm yarns are pricey, and there's a reason, and if you can support that and it's something that's important to you, that's a great thing to do. And I also recognize that that requires having a certain amount of income that you can use for that, and that's not everybody's reality. So the long-winded, which seems to be my problem today, lead up is that I thought I would share with you. So this is Simply Wool by Knit Picks. This is labeled bulky weight because I bought this back when they were selling it as bulky weight. They have this seam yarn now. It's labeled Aran, and that's probably truer to how it knits up in terms of the gauge. So it's a really nice 100% wool. This one is called Winnie. It's 193 yards and 100 grams. I'll just show you the back here. You can look at the certifications that are there for the eco-friendly aspects of it. 100% eco wool, and it is the OEKO Tex Standard 100 certified. It's made in Peru. So anyhow, check it out. All natural colors. They have some that are marled. They have different shades of gray and brown and taupe. And I think when you read the reviews of it, the ones that are negative just seem to be that people didn't get the exact color tone that they thought they were going to get. But in terms of how it knits up, I used this years ago. In fact, for my very first hat design, I used this, and it was lovely then, and it's lovely now. And I had sort of forgotten about it because I have gotten so into farm yarns. But I just wanted to offer this because also Knit Picks always has a really good summer sale. I can't remember exactly the price point of this. I think right now it's $9.99. I think when they first started it was like $7.99. And then they usually have a summer sale. So if you're looking for a place to get some reasonable non-superwash wool, it's not domestic, it's not small farm yarn, but it's something that you might want to look into. And I'll just show you here. I was working on demonstrating some cast on and bind off techniques, so you can kind of see how it knits up. And actually, I might as well throw this out there too if you're looking at this. So it's the yarn that I used for my Awakening Cables hat, which was the first hat that I ever designed. It was the second one I published because I had to resolve a little something with the crown on it. Free on Ravelry with a code. I think the code is Be Kind, but if you look in the Ravelry record for it, you'll see the code. So if you want to download a hat that was designed in that wool, you can also have that pattern. Okay, while we're on the topic of yarns, I'll show you a fiber yarn acquisition. I haven't been buying a lot of fiber or yarn because I have what I need right now for designing and for personal knitting projects. The one thing I've had in mind that I wanted to get was some type of linen blend to make a summer top at some point. I don't know if I'll make it this summer, but I'd love to at least cast it on, swatch it, and then you never know. I might just knit the whole thing. You never know what's going to happen on vacation, right? So I picked this up, and I actually have 2 skeins of it. It's a fingering weight. It is from my local yarn shop, the Unruly Stitch. And Anu, who is the owner and also has a podcast about, it used to be about crochet, and now it's about knitting and crochet and maybe dyeing. Maybe she'll give us some behind the scenes. She dyed these, and this one is, the base is called Field Trio, which, you know, my last name's Field, so it literally had my name on it. I had to take it home. It is 60% fine merino, 30% Pima cotton, and 10% linen. And so I thought that would make a nice summer blend. It is 437 yards in 100 grams. And the other thing about it, when I asked her to share some of the details of dyeing it, she was an art history major and I was an art history major as well, and she pulled up the Van Gogh painting, I think Summer in the City, is that? Summer Evening in the City is what she titled this, and she showed the cafe and how that was her inspiration. So that was the final reason I just decided I would take it home. I love the blue with a little bit of rusty speckle, a little green in there. I'm really curious to see how it will knit up. It's, you know, variegated, but fairly subtle, probably with the exception of these rusty areas that I really like. And so I'll see how it swatches and what I want to do. And I'm either thinking sleeveless or maybe drop shoulder without having an additional sleeve on it, but just something that would be nice to wear in the summer. So we'll see. I also am inspired maybe to make my own pattern, but I could always do it with this first, and then if I like how it comes out and it's one I would want to write up and grade and publish, find a more broadly accessible yarn from one of my favorite yarn producers to knit it in, who knows, maybe for next summer? I don't know. It's a lot of work to put out patterns, everybody. And I love doing it, and sometimes they're fast, but a lot of the ones that I do are not, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. So you saw a little preview of this shawl, and I'm going to leave it back here. I'm not going to take it off, but I did this cream colored section is the next section of it. This is the section I kind of showed more of. This is in the Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Sport Weight yarn, which is looked up, Clun Forest. And it's, everything about it is wonderful. It's great to work with. I knew I was getting ahead of myself a little bit in terms of when I knit a pattern, when I design on the needles, and I was swatching on the needles for the next section to see what I wanted to do. And then when I have to play catch up, I was handwriting everything as I went, and then I'm typing it in. So I took a little pause, typed it in, started charting some of the patterns. And nothing catastrophic here. It's good to catch it when you catch it, because sometimes what you might realize is we're all human. And if my stitch count was, you know, off of 1 here because I forgot an increase or something, then when I get down to my next stitch pattern and I'm working with not just garter and stockinette, it's going to change how I start and end the repeats of a new stitch pattern. So I did catch one of those, and I'm glad I caught it now. And what I'm going to do is make sure I have my stitch count right. It won't change anything. This is why sometimes, this is a little, again, behind the scenes, sometimes you'll see something that's a prototype and it's 99% of what you're going to get when you do the final pattern, but there were a couple of tweaks that the designer made either during writing up the pattern, if they design on the needles, or once it goes through testing, if somebody catches something like a stitch count being off, you might see something slightly different. So to the naked eye, when this is done, it's gonna look just like the one in the pattern, but I will know that there's a little bit of this here and a little bit of that. And so one of the things that I decided to do as I was sorting through this, I like to fix it on paper, and then sometimes, depending on how much work it is, where I am in the pattern, I can either start another sample at the same time or knit up a swatch to test the numbers and just make sure if you have to do anything differently with the stitch pattern that you're able to do it and actually see it work on the needles as well as on paper, because that is sometimes the trick to these things. So I cast on the second one. So this one here, what I did is I did it in completely different colors. I did it in different fiber. It's even a different weight yarn. And I'm probably going to need 4 colors of this. But what you can see is, you know, we're gonna have 2 beautiful shawls here. And when I will finish this one, I'm not sure. What I really wanted to do is resolve something with the repeats of this stitch pattern, and I've resolved it. And so that means now I get to go back to the computer. Not as much fun as the knitting. But I get to go back to the computer, work on the charts, make sure the stitch counts are right, and then go back to my prototype, which is the one that I really need to get done because this will be the one for Vermont sheep and wool. This one, here's what my fantasy is with these colors. A couple of things. First of all, I don't know, my friend Mary, if she's watching, is knitting a sweater with greens and like a cranberry-ish wine color. And then all of a sudden I've started to see Gudrun Johnson had her vest somebody was knitting. I think maybe Simone from Fleece and Harmony is knitting Gudrun's pattern, and she's got this color theme that's like these greens with that same kind of wine-ish, deep berry kind of color, almost leaning toward rust. And then I've been knitting my other sweater with this rust color, and I don't know what it was, but I decided when I was doing this one, I just really wanted to do something with some of those colors. And I wanted to use a different kind of fiber than I'm using for the main prototype, just to have something different to show people in terms of samples. And so I pulled out, I have a beautiful stash of single skeins from being in the So Happy Jane yarn club for a year or so, a little bit more than a year and a half, maybe, when she first launched it. And so these colors were all made to work together. So the colors are the Pumpkin Spice from fall 2023 from the So Happy Jane yarn club. And the green and the gold were called Macrame. And so they work really well together. And what I was actually kind of dreaming of was these colors with a jean jacket, because I just thought like the blue of the denim with these colors would be really neat. Can you see better here? Like, it's a really nice green, and then the pumpkin is gorgeous. And it's like the color I am apparently into, even though it's not fall yet, the gold. And then the one that I haven't used yet, but because I am working with a DK weight yarn and smaller skeins, I think I'm gonna need 4 colors. This was the pairing for the Pumpkin Spice. So this is a variegated. And the other reason I thought that I would work this one in is because when Liz is dyeing for this shawl, she asked me if I thought a variegated would work or just solids. And so by having a sample that has some variegated, people can get inspiration for how that might look in different sections as well. And I think I'll probably, I think it was maybe this section that I was thinking of doing with it, because I want it to be a section that doesn't need a ton of contrast, where there's stitches that hopefully aren't going to get totally lost. So we'll see. That's how this process goes. And like I said, I may not get to finishing this one, but I will have it at least in progress and people can see how that looks. Okay, and I don't know if you are wondering, I got to the sleeve divide on my Autumn Alpine. I did not go past that. I was really happy to get it to the sleeve divide, and all of you knitters who like to do social things know why, because now I can have this in my bag with me all summer, all fall, however long it takes. It may take longer, it may be shorter, it kind of depends, but this can now be my social knitting. Woo! So the needles are out of it. I think I need to get another pair of size 5 needles because taking things out of projects and moving them around drives me kind of crazy. My size 5 needles are in the shawl right now. But the yoke is done. Let's see, this is the back, this is the front. So it's done. It actually only had 3 more rounds when I said 5 last week of color work, so I finished it right that night, I think. Here it is, done to the bottom. And after I do probably about an inch, I will try it on again, and I will just make sure that I'm okay with the yoke depth. But I don't anticipate a problem. Like I said, it's just gonna be a different fit than the one in the pattern, and I know that, and I'm happy with that. And it will just have a little bit of a longer yoke depth, which means a little bit of a different fit all over. But by doing the full yoke, it allowed me a couple of things. It allowed me to have the right stitch count, which I guess now that I'm remembering back to that means I had to do another increase round as well. And so I have the right stitch count. I didn't have to work in an increase in a different way. I was able to cast on the number of underarm stitches per the pattern, and I didn't have to do, most importantly, anything funky to make the yoke design work at a sleeve divide that was a different place from where the pattern was. I used, okay, so I did make it. Remember, that was the other thing we were talking about, was whether or not I was going to make it through the yoke with my 1 skein of Fiberworks Farm, and it's pretty good. I did. I made it. This is how much I have left. Probably not even really enough. This is the trim that I showed you last week that I had done in, I think it's a Jill Draper Makes Stuff yarn. So had I done the neckline with this, oh, I don't know. Then I probably would have had real yarn chicken. But I've done the trim in this, which means I can do it again in the other parts of the sweater, and it will harmoniously go together. And all is well with the world. All is not well with the world. Believe me, I know that. But if we can have a moment where all feels well with the world because we did not lose that yarn chicken, then let's just embrace that these days. Shall we? Okay, so I'm putting that away. So I'm gonna keep it a shorter episode today. That is all my fibery goodness. And I do just want to acknowledge a comment on the last podcast about, making sure that I am mindful and aware of anyone who feels left out of my messaging as well. And I appreciate that comment, and I value it, and I have thought a lot about it, and I continue to think a lot about it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Knit kindly, live kindly, and I'll see you at some point this summer. Take care, everybody.